go. So thank you all for joining. We have the GSX debrief here on a Friday afternoon. We have a lot of people coming on to give their wrap up of how great GSX was in this 2023 year, but also what did you take away from it? So we're going to ask the group two questions. What did you notice about industry growth from a security perspective? And what did you notice about industry security culture growth from our perspective from around the world? So we've got people from all over the globe coming on today to answer those two questions. So we're going to go first. Natasha.
Hi, Britt. Thanks for having me. Lovely to see all of you. The first question I would tackle is from an industry perspective, knowledge-wise, what I was really impressed with surrounded itself around AI. You know, AI is so prevalent right now, and I thought GSX did a great job at taking speakers who not only talked about the threats, but also talked about great use cases for AI. So I walked out with a ton of knowledge on what things I maybe shouldn't be using AI for, but also the positives in AI. So from an industry growth perspective, I really appreciated the AI-based presentations.
Awesome.
From a culture growth, you know, I'm partial to the kindness games, obviously being a part of it, but I saw a more receptive attitude towards a cultural shift that aligns with leading with empathy, a lot of great conversations around changing the tone of how you lead your team and lead your company. And we had a lot of thoughtful conversations around getting different types of perspectives in the door and listening to those perspectives and then bringing those into companies and talking about the benefits of changing the way people hire and lead.
Go to Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo, how you doing?
In relation to your question around industry growth, I was really excited to see Convergence taking a front and center seat, because here in the UK, I advocate very strongly for people being the strongest link between cybersecurity risk and physical security risk. And we're not really all alive to that right now, this side of the pond. But I've always been incredibly excited, certainly in all the conversations I've been having this year, that America seems to be leading the narrative and seems to be leading the action around convergence. And so that was a very, very important part for me, because I think as security professionals, we do need to see security, cybersecurity and physical security working together to mitigate against risks. So the second part really was, I love the diversity that we had this year. Yep. I really enjoyed getting to know the LATAM teams. Certainly, I know that Nigeria there, Kenya there,
right?
Africa was there loud and proud, and I really felt that, especially with the number of women there as well. Right. So it was great for me. It was starting to feel way more inclusive than I think any large gathering of security professionals has ever been, and that just makes me feel more comfortable and more safer. So for me, it was 100% all round.
All right, next up, Nick Weber.
I think for me, the thing that surprised me was how fast we ran into the AI, into the machine learning piece. A little bit scary, but it was good to see that it's been being done. It looks a little responsibly. Culture-wise, the thing that struck me this time around was a lot less competition and a lot more collaboration. Could be because of the kindness games and the people I was hanging out with, but it seemed like even beyond that, in some of the other circles that I've normally traveled in, more of a rising tide lifts all boats rather than I get mine instead of you get yours.
Mr. Jonathan, go for it. And introduce yourself too, please.
Yep, absolutely. So my name is Jonathan Perillo, and I'm the Deputy CSO here at HSB Group. Talking about the security industry, so especially with GSX, I think that the industry is really changing. It's especially over the past like maybe 8 years, we're talking about less and less at these shows about what we're actually doing in security, and more about the organizations that we're doing security in, right? So we're actually making it more about the organization and the security department now. And I think that really kind of steps into the culture growth as well, because we're bringing people in that are not just, people that just replicate security. We're talking about people that are talking about security as a member of their organizations and how they need to implement this. You're seeing these these groups and how we kind of collaborate amongst ourselves to solve the organizational problems that we have and going back to them.
Mr. Olivar, please introduce yourself.
It's a lot of convergence. So it's something that you need to be aware about: logical security, physical security, and many other disciplines. It's more than any specific discipline. Is risk management, and be able to support the organizations where you are working with or you're leading in terms of identifying clearly what the risks are impacting the business continuity. Friends, amazingly to have the opportunity, besides the kindness game, and interact with all of you, have the opportunity to interact with people that I disagree, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the opportunity to agree in all the aspects that we're working with, different cultures that they see things in a completely different, an opposite way that we look at, and to reach a point that we all agree that we are serving our organizations to support their business continuity and keep our people safe.
Exactly. All right, Mr. Mark, please introduce yourself.
I'm used to being the host. This is Mark Ludlow. Yeah, what I got from this was I saw a hunger that I have not seen in the security industry in a long time. I don't know if it was after a pandemic or what it was, but I saw international hunger from all over the globe. People just wanted face-to-face. They want to get off Zoom. They wanted that personal touch. And it was warm. It was, I wouldn't say fuzzy, but very warm. And you guys made a huge splash over there. Just the culture you guys created. And I just saw a hunger of people wanting to get to know each other at a more personal level, not just business, but personal is what I saw. And, everybody was so busy, doing lunches and dinners and just having a blast. It was almost like Vegas times 10. And from a security perspective, I saw a lot more less alpha personality conflict, but more shaking of hands. Let's talk. Let's work together. And that's right. That was so very different from what I'm used to in the security industry. And so that's kind of what I took away from it. It made me think, there's a shift taking place. And I have a bet that you guys all are a major player in making that happen. So congrats to you guys for the culture you guys are creating. So AI, I think cyber, leadership communication. Tim and Lee hit the nail on the head on that. But AI and cyber are going to be the new forces we're going to be having to figure out. Not just executive protection, physical security, but it's going to be a different type of a conflict going forward in the future in security.
Miss Melissa Mack.
I'm down here in Texas. I'm the managing director for Pinkerton for the Midwest and Canada. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate the consideration. So GSX was awesome, right? And kind of piggybacking on Mark from the security industry side, I think we've had to accept the AI and technology convergence, the IT aspect. Everybody's kind of known it, but I think people are finally actually doing it, right? So I think that's where we saw the shift from the industry side. And then from the culture side, the collaboration, I think, is you've got the young feeding the old, if you will. There's so much youth and invigorating young talent coming into the industry. There's that hunger, there's that passion, but then I think you also have the seasoned professionals that are finally okay with letting go, right, of some of it and saying, all right, we can work together to really take this to the next level.
All right, Mr. Tim Kelly.
From the integration side, I think we have a good perspective because we're not product specific, we're solution driven. So, GSX, great opportunity to see what's happening on the floor, as well as getting in touch with all the practitioners. So, from industry growth, I guess I'll, resonate what I've heard so far since joining. It's all about emerging technologies. I think that companies and practitioners are trying to drive more value out of their products. So anything, anything that can help help push the envelope to see more, do more, while reducing, costs in other areas. I think that we're still in this place, for those of us who traveled, pandemic wise, the show floors were very small, but everybody who was there was really happy to be there. And I think that has just continued, and now we had great numbers for GSX this year, and they said pre-pandemic numbers, and I think that culture of collaboration and getting together, I think is still there, and I think it's still just really pushing forward.
All right, Mr. Jason Sikora.
I think from a security industry growth perspective, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what we've already heard already. And I think the discussions around are much more future focused, instead of really kind of being in the now. I think when I first got involved with the security industry, GSX specifically, it was all about really kind of, how can I address the issues that I'm facing right now versus, what are the issues that we're facing 10 years from now? It's been nice to really kind of see cybersecurity have a spotlight now, because in years past, I feel like there's been an attempt to do that, but really kind of more, there's even a spot on the show floor now, Cybersecurity Pavilion, that was really dedicated to that. And we got a lot of great feedback about that, and just kind of seeing that and the excitement around it. And the sessions having some type of inner workings with cybersecurity has been pretty impressive. Thought even more impressive, even though AI is just so prevalent right now, AI has been part of every conversation that we go through. So that was been pretty exciting. And I even had my first conversation about quantum computing, which is still about 10 years away. So that's pretty exciting that we're even having those conversations now. Okay. From a cultural perspective, I think, just in general, there's just this new, genuine, altruistic nature to so many people that, I've run into over the last year or so, and really kind of converged at GSX. And I feel like Tim and Lee are kind of leading that. But I feel like it's just an innate nature now where people are not necessarily so focused on, what's in it for me, but what's in it for you, and how can I lift you up and the people that are around me, which I thought was it's so refreshing, because it's been the complete opposite of that nature that I saw when I was first there. And I think it's encouraging people to come out of their shells and break down barriers and have more productive conversations, and really be excited about what they represent, not necessarily just from a security professional standpoint, but from a human standpoint. And I'm here for it, for sure.
Well stated. Felt really good, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Jason. All right, Miss Kekishan, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kekishan Dadwani, and I'm one of the founding members with Tim and Lee, of course, of the Kindness Games. This was my second GSX, so I was just super excited to be there and to be included in this conversation. I'll just go straight into the questions. I think from a security growth standpoint, one of the things that I really noticed this year was the evolution of security, which includes sort of that convergence of cybersecurity, of, how are we integrating artificial intelligence into our day-to-day? How are we using different tools and systems? And how are we looking at organizational resilience as a collective, right? Because it's not just about the tools and the systems you use or the best practices, but it's also about the people that you're bringing into your organizations and how you're letting them fly. And I think the final thing was really around leadership. How exactly are you communicating with your leadership? In the past, I noticed a lot, when I first entered the industry, it was a lot about, how are you going to help them understand the risk? And, it was sort of through this lens of fear. And I think now it's really about helping them understand very clearly what is the risk and how they mitigate it. And I heard this said over and over again, keep it simple, keep it simple. Don't use really harsh terminology. You want to make sure that they are a partner and not somebody who just sees you as sort of this cost center. So I thought the evolution of the security industry was something that I noticed. And I think from a cultural standpoint, I was very pleasantly surprised to have been included in the CSO WIS conversation. And I thought that was just phenomenal to be able to see so many women interact with, leadership in the security industry, and them being so supportive and eager to bring the women with them and just saying, okay, let's figure out how we can move forward. Obviously a journey begins with a single step. And so the fact that there was even this desire to let's figure out what steps that we can take and what milestones we need to hit, let's say next year and the year after, I thought that was just fantastic. This inclusivity is so exciting and just infectious, that I'm super excited to see what comes of it next year.
Very nice. Thank you, Ms. Kehkashan. All right. We're going to go to Mr. Lee Odess.
I'll start on the culture side then. So for me, I think it was personally, as someone who's going to GSX for a while, this is the first blatantly obvious one that this organization is built around the people and the culture, and that the trade show is realistically a tax on the manufacturers to be able to afford this show to go on. And you really see sort of an institution that hasn't evolved enough to figure out how to make money elsewhere. So they create this space that people have to go to and put these big booths up, and frankly think it's a big waste of money, in my opinion. To where if you were to look at what was happening there, people were there to network. I thought the presentations and the seminars that I went to were great. And you can really see that this is an organization made up by the community that's around there. And frankly, that the organization needs to figure out how to make that trade show much more valuable. If I was a manufacturer, I wouldn't even show a booth. I mean, if I had to buy space because they haven't figured out how to make money, I don't know, I put up a couple couches and have maybe some coffee and drinks and things like that, make it like the lounge for those of you that saw like at ISC West, right? Like, so this show is literally taken on, I believe it's a manifestation of the people, not the products, where maybe that's an evolution. Where ISC West, in my opinion, is more about the products in a lot of ways. The community is still strong in there and people network, but you do see new stuff at that. I didn't see a lot of new stuff. I saw a lot of people that wanted to connect and talk and get and do it. So that's my takeaway from a cultural standpoint side. From a security side, so for those of you that don't know me, I focus on the access control and the smart lock industry, so I didn't spend much time elsewhere. But from an access control and smart lock side, what I saw was a continued story of, as an industry, there's been sort of like internal threats, not a lot of external. So if I take like external, meaning like Apple Wallet and Google Wallet now coming into our space, which is transitioning it from a value proposition, which was like keep people safe and keep bad people out, to now letting people in, which is completely a different value proposition story. And what you're fundamentally seeing is, I call it a math problem, where it's sort of like the numerator always stayed the same, like the channel and how we price things and how we message and the expectations of the value proposition, but the denominator always changed. So it was sort of like this new little iterated technology that would be coming off it, to where now the numerator and the denominator is completely changing. The value proposition story, external, the investments coming into it, the expectations of how people show up now in the conversations. Like, cloud is now no longer a feature additions off of iterated 30-year-old technology. It's actually an architecture, and it's creating new companies that don't think about cloud or market cloud or think about mobile and market mobile. It's just because that's how they build stuff, and they can talk about the value creation stories that it delivers. And you're seeing those value creation stories that are starting. You're starting to see people take away there's still plenty that do it, but you're starting to see some take away, like cloud-based access control systems. Like, no, like I want this thing to add more value. It's turning to a total cost of from a total cost of ownership story of like, go from on-site to cloud to now here's the ROI, here's the additional value that these systems can create other than keeping bad people out. So that's what I saw from you.
All right. Miss Mary Gamble.
Hello. My name is Mary Gamble. I'm an attorney at Gamble Legal. Echoing a lot of what I'm hearing from everybody else, I think, in my opinion, I think both from the industry and the culture perspective, it was the same. And I think we're seeing the payoff of the conversations we've been having for years, and it's become a lot more holistic across the board. So it's not a conversation about an individual product or an individual demographic. It's a really holistic look. It's how do we incorporate ESRM? How are we incorporating ESG? How are we incorporating the kindness games and that thought leadership approach? How are we making the industry better. Oh, we can use an individual product. Cool. We can hire more women. Cool. That's a piece of it. But that's not the conversation. It's part of the conversation. And so that was really, really cool to see.
And last but not least, Mr. Tim Wenzel. Mr. Tim Wenzel.
So GSX this year, the culture was all the things that we talked about pre-pandemic, because humans matter, relationships matter. If we cannot interact with each other and lead each other well, we have no hope at any seat, at any table. And that is changing, which is awesome culturally. The other thing that this has resulted in is an actual hunger to understand how to take security concepts and risk management and merge them with business acumen to create the businessman of security or business person of security. And this is a huge shift, because Lee and I had a leadership talk. Steve Hernandez and Natasha had a leadership talk, standing room only. Unheard of in past GSXs. Nobody cared. And the conversations that people were having with me were, how can we create better personas, better interactions, and not sell security, but actually translate security to business value. So that was a huge cultural shift.
Correct.
And then within the people, within the industry moving forward, because we've had this COVID awakening, we're looking to develop ourselves in atraditional ways. And actually, there's a very real dynamic this year. It actually started last year at that GSX, but this year I had 15 conversations with established industry leaders that were essentially, here's the scepter. It is being handed down to this generation. And so now, from here forward, it's up to us to steward and direct this industry. And I think that's a huge moment in time for us. And so now, what are we going to do with that responsibility? How will we lead? This is what we need to struggle with this year and talk about next year at GSX.
All right, Mr. Irwin.
But yeah, no, it was good to see that. And also when I went over to the floor, I saw the better mix, if I can say this, between cybersecurity and physical security, right, and more technology perspective. I didn't see that in Atlanta. I could have missed it. It was huge. It was overwhelming. But this time I saw that, and it was just amazing. This is where we should be leading to, I would say, to that good mix of vendors, industry leaders there from different angles.
Right.
So yeah, I was happy to see that. I think definitely from a next gen perspective, we do need to stimulate to get more students, young people to get there, because it's an amazing environment to start with, to start your network, to understand what you can do in the industry.
Right.
Because everyone talks a lot more, shares their knowledge, and yeah, it's just a happy place, I would call it.
Right.
Hey there, Steve here, coming to you from Chicago. To me, it was culture of companies only starting to realize that they need to put continued plans in place and actually money set aside. Things that happen, opposed to having a procurement.
Go to finance, get $50,000 or get $20,000 to solve a little problem before it becomes a big problem. I'm seeing these companies now saying, hey, let's set aside these funds, let's put them into buckets so that we can get access to them in a big way. The other thing that I see as a major thing that I noticed at GSX this year is the side hustle community. 38% of Americans right now have a side hustle. In 4 years, they're expecting that to be 83% of people will have a side hustle.
And the security industry is not immune to this. It's the same group of people that are out there putting themselves out in the marketplace. They're putting 120% of your current company and only paid 100%. People putting 100% into their
current company and putting that extra 20% into their side hustle where they can go out and put their skills to work and do it in a way that's good for them. That's it. Peace out. Have a good one. Thanks for doing this, Britt.
Hi, so the two questions you asked about the industry growth. For me, the biggest sort of industry area that I'm working in particularly is what I see now as that convergence between the operational tools of access control, cameras, and the overlay of the analytics. That's a really exciting space now to be looking at and growing. As far as the culture growth, for me, it is again on the diversity agenda. It's so wonderful to see such a mix of people being open-minded and embracing new ideas, new concepts, particularly now for the next gen, the women in security, but also that global connectedness. It just felt so much more impactful this year. Thanks. It was wonderful being in Texas. Thanks to everybody at the Kindness Games, everybody, that puts this event on within ASIS International. I totally loved Texas Night, but also I think what ACES did with the Women in Security and Next Gen co-event at the Omni was also fantastic. Well done, everybody. Take care.
That was awesome. Hey, Vince and Chuck, doing a quick GSX debrief. Two things. One, security culture, and two, what'd you see on the floor that was like in the security industry technology piece that we took notice of? Well, number one, let's start with security culture. Women in security, huge strides. Number two, technology, let's make it simple. 2 letters. A as in Adam, I as in Ida. Artificial intelligence, AI. Those are your quick update from downtown Calgary, Canada.
With that, that is the wrap, people. Thank you for attending. This is our GSX debrief from BrittFest webinars, and I wanted to thank you all. I will say 2 things I took away from this GSX. One is the culture is improving, right? We knew years ago that if we didn't do something fast, security may or may not fizzle out with this generation of leaders that's retiring. And we have seen that shift. We've made that shift. I think COVID helped that shift, but now it's up to us to foster it, keep it going, keep it feeding it until it happens globally. And I challenge everybody on this call, but also everybody out there, is to connect with those who are out there globally. Don't sit behind your computers wherever you are, whether it's the United States or Africa or Australia or Latin America or Europe, and forget that you have security leadership around the world that you've met now. That is that security family that we're building. Because again, people, places, and things are the things that we protect no matter what. And whether that's with physical security or cybersecurity or whatever, we're doing it. So thank you all.